皆さん、こんにちは。Joanna です。Here I am again, and today we will talk about why it is so hard to learn how to count in Japanese. What's the deal? You probably already know the numbers. If you don't know, I will leave a link to a video that I did a few months ago about numbers in Japanese, and you can go there and you can check it out and you can learn the numbers and then you can come back here. But let's talk about the counters. What are the counters? Have you heard the counters before? I'm not sure if you heard the counters before, because if you are a beginner, you probably haven't heard about the counters. But the thing is, in Japanese, we need the famous counters to count, and today we will talk about what the counters are and how to use them, and what are the counters that you should know as a beginner. I will not go over all the counters in the planet because it will be a long video. So I will just go over the counters that you need if you are just starting to learn Japanese and you understand many things that you heard watching some movie, probably. So let's go. First of all, what are the counters exactly? Let's go over that. Basically, in Japanese, if you want to count, for example, I want to count how many books I bought, I want to count how many flowers they gave me as a present, I want to count with how many people I go to the karaoke. So if I want to count, I need the counters. The counters are, let's say, a unit that explains what exactly we are counting. We do the same thing in English with a few words. It's not only, let's say, Japanese thing that we do. For example, in English, if I want to count water, I will not say one water. I will say, for example, one bottle of water. So imagine that everything in Japanese needs to explain, like the bottle of water, everything needs to be explained. Because in Japanese, everything that you count needs a counter. For example, if I need to count books, I will say satsu, nisatsu, 2 books, let's say. If I want to count people, I will say sannin, 3 people. And the counters are, of course, very important to count because just knowing the numbers is just not enough in Japanese. I hope you understood what exactly the counters are. I think the concept is not the difficult part of it. The difficult part of it is actually using it. So in this video, we will learn, as I said previously, the most important counter. The first counter that we will learn is actually the first that I teach to my students, but they don't actually know it's a counter. I usually teach them the kanji, so we will be seeing also the kanji today. I teach them the kanji and then explain to them that we use it to count people. So yes, it's the count of 4 people. And I say to them that we use it to count people and then explain how we use it to count people. But yes, let's learn the first counter that my students learn. Let's make that the first one. So let's learn how to count people. So to count people, we would use this beautiful kanji over here. This kanji is the kanji for people. So when this kanji is alone, we read it as hito. And when it's combined with other kanji, we could read it both as nin or jin, depending of the word and the situation. In our case, the case that concerns us, let's say today, is to count. I will talk about this kanji in the future. When I make a kanji video, this kanji will probably be the next one. But for now, yes, we use this kanji to count people. And when we use it to count people, we read it as nin. But of course, there is a catch. It is Japanese. When we count 1 or 2, 1 person, 2 people, we don't read it as nin. So I will put here a very beautiful PowerPoint. Well, not really, but I will put here a PowerPoint for you to check it out. And we will see it with the actual words written here. So let's check it out. And here we can see how we count people in Japanese. So yet again, we use this kanji to count people. This is usually the PowerPoint that I use to explain to my students the kanji of person. And here we have how to, let's say, use it to count. So the first 2, as I said before, are irregular. So if you want to say 1 person, you would say hitori, hitori. You would write it like this. Here you have numbers and the kanji of people or person, and then you say hitori. So hitori, 1 person, and usually also in Japanese, when we say hitori, it means that we are alone or doing something alone. So if you put the particles de after hitori de, it means that you are doing something alone. For example, hitori de tabemasu. I eat by myself, I eat alone. Then 2 people would be futari. futari, futari. So this one is also irregular and we need to remember. But after number 2, all the other ones we just need to say the number and add nin, and that's it. There's not that complicated. So we add nin to the number. So 3 would be san nin. The number 4 would be the irregular one if we want to say so. Because we don't say yon nin or shinin, we say yonin, just yo. Then 5 nin, 6 nin, 7 nin, 8 nin, 9 nin, and 10 nin. Actually, with 7, you could say shichinin, and with 9, you could say kunin, and it would be also correct. You have those 2 options. So, easy, right? We put number and then nin after. And 1 and 2 are irregular. We need to remember by memory. To ask for how many people, we can say nan nin desu ka? Nan nin desu ka? Actually, the counters, we will use them also to ask for quantity. So for example, if you want to ask how many books you bought, you would use the counter for books and you will use nan and then you would say the counter. So nansatsu desu ka? In the case of persons, how many people? You would say nan and then nin. So nan nin desu ka? Nan nin desu ka? Let's move on to the next counter. Let's learn our next counter. Our next counter is satsu. Satsu we use to count books and notebooks, and that's it, basically books. Actually, I wrote here the kanji for you. You can see it over here and over here. And for me, it kind of looks like 3 stacked books. I don't know, I hope you see it too. It's necessary to learn this kanji right now for you? Probably not. As for example, the kanji for person, it is a very basic kanji and you should probably start checking it out. But this one is not that basic, so it's not necessary for you to actually be learning it. But I think it's very visually what it is. So if you want to check it out and you want to learn it, there it is. So satsu, we use satsu to count books and notebooks, and that's it, as I said previously. And here we have it how we can count. Actually, this counter is super regular. The only different one is the first one, and this is very common. In a lot of counters, instead of saying ichi and then counter, chi disappears and it turns into a little tsu. In this case, it's the same. So for example, 1 book or 1 books, would be isatsu. Isatsu. Then we have 2, nisatsu, 3satsu, 4satsu, 5satsu, 6satsu, 7satsu, 8satsu, 9satsu, and 10satsu. And yeah, this counter is pretty easy. There is actually nothing that we need to check. So there you have it. And yet again, to ask for how many books, we would say like this: nansatsu desu ka? How many books or how many notebooks? Nansatsu desu ka? Let's turn our last counter of today. I think this video is turning out a little bit long, so I think I will divide it into 2 parts. I will make the first part and I will upload it, I don't know when, but first part would be this one and second part would be another day. So let's check out this counter over here. If you know a little bit about kanji, you will know that this kanji is the kanji that we use to write the word book. Book is hon, and we write hon like that. That's the kanji for book. But no, it's not the kanji to count books. Randomly, it is not. We used to count cylindrical objects or long, thin objects. For example, I will use it to count bottles of water. I would use it to count cans. I would use it to count pencils, umbrellas, etc. So let's check it out. This one is pretty messy, meaning it changes a lot. So let's check it out. So 1 would be ippon, ippon with P, ippon. 2 would be normal, nihon. Then 3 would be sanbon with B sound. Then 4hon, then 5hon, these 2 normal. Then 6 would be roppon. It is true that you could say rokuhon, but this is better. Roppon better. Then we have 7 is nanahon, normal, let's say. Then 8 again changes, so it's happon. Then 9 is kyuhon, and finally 10 is juppon. So as you can see, this one changes a lot. It changes in number 1, number 3, number 6, 8, and 10. So be very careful with this one. Yet again, to ask for quantity, we would use nan, and then we would use the counter. So nanhon desu ka? Nanhon desu ka? So for today, we will learn until here because I don't want it to be a very super long video. There are still many things to explain. I want to explain a few more counters, and I want to explain a counter that is super useful. That is, I don't know if to call it tsu, but basically there is a counter that we can use for anything. So when you have no idea what counter to use, you can use that one. So I plan to explain that in the next video of counters, and I also would like to explain how to use them in a sentence, because they are not complicated, but they are not easy either. So explaining that would be also very important. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're expecting next counter video. And I hope I give you a little bit of insight on how to count in Japanese. So see you in another video. またね。ありがとうございました。